Let me summarize my views on what modern evolutionary biology tells us loud and clear, and I must say that these are basically Darwin's views. There are no gods, no purposive forces of any kind, no life after death. When I die, I am absolutely certain that I'm going to be completely dead. That's just all, that's going to be the end of me. There is no ultimate foundation for ethics, no ultimate meaning in life, and no free will for humans either. What an unintelligible idea.
Which is funny considering that nowhere are any of those things even remotely relevant to modern biology, inclusive of evolutionary theory. Nowhere does biology rule out the existence of a deity, merely the requirement for a deity. Biology, being a field of science, does not touch the supernatural prospect of an afterlife, nor does it touch metaethics, which is a field of philosophy, the same for the meaning of life. As for free will, well, that's entirely dependent on the definition utilized. If we are discussing agency through biological functioning and cognition, then sure, it exists. If discussing choices made free of determining factors, aka the opposite of determinism, then by the very definition of choice, no, it does not exist. My biology, my cognition predetermine the outcome of my actions. That is why I determine my choice. It is myself acting, yet I'm acting in a deterministic manner. Now, this video is merely one of three that have been stitched together into a newer video, the main bulk coming from a 2009 video by Mark Driscoll. Since this was a reformatted and uploaded video, I thought it'd be worth a look.
There are various ways of seeing God. There are, in fact, basically 5. We'll call them worldviews. Ways of viewing the world and your place in it in relation to God and what ensues after this life.
Wait, what? Okay, there are a number of issues here. First of all, atheism doesn't technically exist beyond being used to describe a shared position on a singular subject. It lacks structure, tenets, ideology, or dogma, therefore shouldn't really be classed an ism or a worldview. For that you require an extension in the form of a philosophy or political stance, e.g. humanism, secularism, nihilism, Buddhism, Marxism, and the likes. The same goes for deism, pantheism, and even plain old theism, i.e. Christianity is a theistic stance, just as humanism can be an atheistic stance. Not to say that all humanists are atheists, but it can be seen as an extension of atheism. Therefore, theism alone means nothing. The only one that actually belongs on that list of so-called worldviews is Christianity, along with every other spiritual, political, economic, and social doctrine and philosophy in existence. You could say that they are 4 metagroups into which worldviews could fall under, but Christianity is not one on its own, merely being part of number 4. Not to mention, I would argue that you have already turned theism, pantheism, and deism into worldviews by separating them from the basic metatheism, if you will, i.e. the belief that there is a deity in some form. You have already burdened these 3 with a group of ideas as opposed to the answer to a single question on belief by dissecting them.
The first is atheism. Theos, God. Not. So atheism is that there is no God. There is no God.
Well, yeah, sure. If you have the etymology skills of a styrofoam cup. The A at the front of theos is used in a form to disqualify, i.e. not theos, or an absence of theos. Theos meaning a belief in God. Therefore we come out with someone who has an absence of theistic belief, aka an absence of belief in God. Just to compare it to Gnostic and agnostic, Gnostic means no or knowledge. A means not. Therefore, by your own standard, agnostic would mean that there is no knowledge, as opposed to the mere absence of knowledge it is actually utilized for. However, words do change in their usage. Yet this is not a free hall pass for you to merely make up whatever random stuff you wish. Rather, you should merely just ask those who self-identify as atheists how the word is used to get a general idea, as opposed to merely making up your own definition as a theist in attempts to attack us. Atheism is the positive claim that no God exists, about as much as agnosticism is the positive claim that no knowledge exists.
Now, if that is the case, then this life is all we've got. There's no God who made us. There's no God who knows us. There's no God who's come for us. There's no God to comfort us. And when we die, there's no God to greet us. Just this life. That's all that there is.
But how does that follow? I mean, I am solely a naturalistic individual. I personally lack conviction of the existence of all supernatural claims, including the afterlife. Yet the non-existence of a deity does not then follow that there is no afterlife, or ghosts, or psychics, or the rest of the world woo that doesn't exist. They stand and fall on their own foundation.
Philosophically, if worked out to its logical conclusion, this is a horrific way to live your life.
I do hope you'll be able to demonstrate this claim fully, displaying not merely anecdotal evidence or even statistical correlation, but actual cause and effect, as is required to make such a statement, displaying how the absence of theistic belief, or even the absence of belief in an afterlife, lessens the value of our present life.
I'll give you two quotes. The first is from Bertrand Russell, the great atheistic philosopher. I put great in quotes, at least in my mind. He says this, that man is the product of causes which had no provision of the end they were achieving, that his origin, his growth, his hopes and fears, his loves and his beliefs are but the outcome of accidental collocations of atoms that no fire, no heroism, no intensity of thought and feeling can preserve an individual life beyond the grave, that all the labors of the ages, all the devotion, all the inspiration, all the noonday brightness of human genius are destined to extinction in the vast death of the solar system. And the whole temple of man's achievement must inevitably be buried beneath the debris of a universe in ruins. All these things, if not quite beyond dispute, are yet so nearly certain that no philosophy which rejects them can hope to stand. Only within the scaffolding of these truths, only on the firm foundation of the unyielding despair, can the soul's habitation henceforth be safely built.
How, in such an alien and inhuman world, can so powerless a creature as man preserve his aspirations untarnished? A strange mystery it is that nature, omnipotent but blind, in the revolutions of her secular hurryings through the abyss of space, has brought forth at last a child, subject still to her power, but gifted with sight, with knowledge of good and evil, with the capacity of judging all the works of his unthinking mother. In spite of death, the mark and seal of the parental control, man is yet free, during his brief years, to examine, to criticize, to know, and in imagination to create. To him alone, in the world with which he is acquainted, this freedom belongs, and in this lies his superiority to the resistless force that controls his outward life. Or, in short, as Carl Sagan stated, we are a way for the cosmos to know itself. We have been given a great gift by nothing more than a string of natural events, events we may now explore, investigate, and feel wonder towards. The fact is that Bertrand Russell was not a man disgruntled by life as you so poorly attempted to portray him as. Frankly, it does not sit, as the essay you quoted ends on how humankind loves all which life has to offer, not sacrificing it so foolishly for the faint and unfounded promise of another. For you see, in his eyes, the good life is one inspired by love and guided by knowledge. I personally view that as beautiful.
Here's what he's saying. There is no God. You come from nowhere and no one. You're here for no purpose. If you are hurting or suffering, there is no one to help you or rescue you or comfort you.
I come from my family. I have them as well as my friends and even my wider community to help me and to comfort me in my time of need. I see the goodness in humankind, not taking that for granted, for a single person with a good heart has achieved more in a single action than all the proposed gods of every religion combined has ever done. You sell your house short for a drawing of a mansion.
And when you die, there is nothing awaiting you. What he's saying is this is the scaffolding for life. And the foundation, he says, is, quote, unyielding despair.
The very last line of that quote that you gave earlier stated that only within truth can an actual solution to said despair be brought forward in being thankful for the life we do have without hungering for another. To reiterate, only within the scaffolding of these truths, only on the firm foundation of an unyielding despair, can the soul's habitation henceforth be safely built. That's why you gave no time for your audience or the viewers to process the meaning of the last line before cutting in. This was merely the opening paragraph of an entire essay. The starting line, not the end conclusion.
Richard Dawkins, a more modern-day atheist, was asked the question, doesn't your worldview lead you to be depressed? Here's what he said. I don't feel depressed about it, but if somebody does, that's their problem. Maybe the logic is deeply pessimistic. Maybe. The universe is bleak, cold, and empty, but so what? Bleak, cold, and empty, but so what? Logically consistent, emotionally deadly.
Well, there are two major issues here. For one, there is no reference for this quote. I tried to find it, narrowing my results to prior this talk, and found that there was only one source that wasn't marked. The source being the C.S. Lewis Society, which housed the quote in question inside of a segment of a published book. Now, whilst the page claims on the Google search that it is dated back to 1997, this is clearly false, as it's an extract from a second edition of a book published in 2013, the original being published back in 2003. The extract itself gave no reference beyond the mention of another one of the author's articles and Richard Dawkins, the blind watchmaker. Fact is that I couldn't find said article or the quote in Darwin's book. But even if the quote did exist, somewhere, and had merely gone undocumented, what's the context? As shown with the previous quote from Russell, which was the opening paragraph of an essay, how does Dawkins go about things? Does Dawkins elaborate? This is far more probable simply because we know that Dawkins' views on life and the universe are certainly not hopeless nihilism as Mark Driscoll attempts to paint them as.
You come from no one. You come from nowhere. You're here for nothing. No one can save you.
Save me from what? Eternal punishment that doesn't exist? Which, by the way, is apparently a crime inflicted upon humanity by the very same entity that you claim will save us. Infinite punishment, never ending for finite crimes, many of which hurt nobody, some of which are spiritually criminalizing consensual love between two adults. Justice is displayed as a set of scales because the punishment is intended to match the crime and to solve the issue. So, firstly, there is no fictional torment to be saved from, but even if there were, it would be down to the unjust bile of your proposed God.
Might makes right. Only the fittest survive. If you are losing, it's because you're a loser. If it's your pain, it is for progress, and so be destroyed in the name of forward advancement.
Wait, I thought this video was supposed to be lying about what atheists believe, not talking about the Christian right's social policy. The fact of evolution in explaining biodiversity has no implication upon us as a species and our social interaction. It is not our physical suffering that has made us great. It is our ability for compassion and imagination. Since you liked quoting Dawkins so much back there, allow me to do the same here with a recent answer to a question Dawkins was asked.
What is your opinion on same-sex marriage, and is it against the evolution principle?
I don't care what's against the evolution principle. I'm all for going against the evolution principle. Evolution, by natural selection, is the explanation for why we exist. It is not something to guide our lives in our own society. If we were to be guided by the evolution principle, then we would be living in a kind of ultra-Thatcherite, Reaganite society. Study your Darwinism for two reasons, because it explains why you're here, and the second reason is study your Darwinism in order to learn what to avoid in setting up society. What we need is a truly anti-Darwinian society. Anti-Darwinian in the sense that we do not wish to live in a society where the weakest go to the wall, where the strongest suppress the weak, even kill the weak. I at least do not wish to live in that kind of society. I want to live in a sort of society where we take care of the sick, where we take care of the weak, take care of the oppressed, which is a very anti-Darwinian society. So,
So you see, the acknowledgement of evolutionary history does not then equate to what is termed as social Darwinism, a name which is a bit dishonest, as Darwin was certainly not for any such thing. Merely a look at any of his writings in their broader context will reveal this fact. Take for example the fact that Darwin was anti-slavery, to the point that the captain of the Beagle, Robert Fitzroy, banned him from the captain's table for a short period after a row on said topic. Fitzroy was also known for famously standing up at the British Association for the Advancement of Science and declaring with Bible in hand that they should reject Darwin's work and continue to accept the word of God.
And when you die, there is nothing, there is no one, you go nowhere. The universe is cold, bleak, and empty. But so what? Build your life on unyielding despair.
The fact is, no matter what you believe, the universe isn't any different. We are still a tiny speck in the cosmos, and it's up to us whether we accept that and build forward from that, as both Russell and Dawkins suggested, or, if we make like you, we create fantasy to deceive ourselves and give us a bloated sense of grandeur.
You ever wonder why atheists don't have great songs? That's why.
Wrong, actually. Every song ever that lacks the mention of a god, that celebrates the vastness of human emotion, the feeling of love and the hope for the future, whether the writer intended it or not, is atheistic by nature, as the mere absence of a deity makes it so. Another thing that you leave out is how, until the last century, we could be ostracized or even killed in the predominantly Christian society, as any dissenting view scares the religious institutions right to the core. That's why you have made this video, filled with such falsehood, because you are afraid of us.
Now, where this leads inevitably is that when your life really hurts, you're struggling, you're hurting, you're physically injured, you're diagnosed with cancer, your marriage is in shambles, your loved one has betrayed you, your children are wayward, your boss fires you, you're nearing your end, emotionally you're undone. Maybe you're just a tender-hearted, conscienced person and just life on the earth is very difficult for you. Here's where you end up going with this ideology. Depression. You're just depressed. You're just depressed. That's why the number one category of prescription medications is antidepressants. Not saying that all medication is a sin, but a lot of medication is a functional savior. People who don't know God and as a result don't have hope.
You are correct in saying that is a functional savior, in that it actually works to an extent, unlike mythological fabrications which merely have a basic placebo effect. But here is the thing. How does being an atheist lead to depression? You have yet to show that. You have only shown how the religious can attempt to devalue human life by attacking the nature of reality, crying about it, and then telling people that it makes them worthless. Meanwhile, humanism values human life innately, for it has a quality unlike any other. You only have one life. It is impossible for me to replicate it. You may not have some grand impact amongst the cosmos. You may feel small and insignificant when you look up at the stars. But know this, there is only one of you, and you are loved for it. To us on earth, to the human collective, one person makes all the difference for billions of conscious people. Living, breathing, loving people. To the universe, we mean nothing. To us, we mean everything. Can atheists become depressed? Sure, they're not immune. Yet there is a much higher level of said depression in the ex-religious atheists, those who have had their personal symbolic value destroyed at a young age, or even later in life by clergy behind the pulpit, standing where you stand, doing what you are doing. You claim to value human life as a Christian, yet you have spent your entire video attacking it. Value does not come from the outside. It comes from within, when we decide and learn to accept us as we are.
It also leads to self-medication, drugs, alcohol, sex, pornography, shopping, violence, entertainment, a consumption culture, a conspicuous consumption culture.
Funny, Christians are in no way immune to all of the before mentioned, and in fact are at the forefront of many of those things. For one, you merely have to realise that atheists make up next to none of the US prison population, and that is taking into consideration the proportions of the general population. That's rather peculiar considering the claim of increased violence. However, there is one thing that atheists are certainly more likely to get high on: life. The very fact that we exist.
Thirdly, it results in suicide. If there's no God to judge me and no God to help me, and when I die there is no consequence, then if it hurts really bad, why not just get it over? I'm going to die anyways. Let's just move the date.
Well, if life is merely a doormat, then why bother going on? Not all religions oppose suicide. Also, I would ask you for statistics, but coroners have been known to try and remove some of the religious family's suffering by editing causes of death. Hence, suicide statistics are not the most trustworthy when dividing by religion. Also, any actual difference could simply come down to the fact that the Christian right demonized non-believers during the Cold War and the Red Scare, to the extent that they used to be the number one mistrusted minority, only recently having been replaced by Islam once again. This is called calling out the problem you are responsible for.
Prayed for a gal just an hour ago, bawling. She said, "That's what I believe, and I was going to kill myself. What do I do?" That's consistent. That's why teen suicide rates are up and girls cut themselves in junior high. That's why. That's why.
Or could it be down to the fact that the Christian right still demonizes female liberty, particularly sexuality, as the rest of the world advances, as well as the fact that suicide rates are being reported more frequently down to improved methods of autopsy? I'm not, however, going to so arrogantly state that this is the only issue. Possibly the higher teen pregnancies due to abstinence-only sex education along the Bible Belt doesn't help, amongst other factors which explain the irregularity on how suicide rates are rising and falling over time.
You know, my sons, they're 8 and 10, they have a buddy who was diagnosed with cancer, elementary school boy. Good boy, nice boy, sweet boy. Recently took them to the hospital to visit their friend and bring him a gift and pray for him. You know what I didn't tell the Driscoll boys? Look, the universe is cold, empty, and bleak, but so what? And the key is to build your life, gentlemen, on unyielding despair. And only the fittest survive. So if your buddy doesn't make it, he's back on the food chain of Darwinian evolution, and that's what happens to the less fit.
The more you keep giving the Dawkins quote, the more I'm getting the picture of what he meant. So what if the universe is cold? We, the people, who feel and love, are not cold, not naturally anyway. It takes religion to make good people do bad things. Want to know how to comfort your children? Let them know that their friend, just like themselves, came from a star. Let them know that even though their friend may unfortunately lose his life, that his presence still lives on, both in their memory of him as their friend, but also in the very universe itself. We were all part of the same star at one point. Maybe one day the same will be true again.
It's unbelievable that people would adopt this as hope for their life. It's not hope for their life, it's certainty of their death.
No, it is called the falsehood and misrepresentation you have concocted. Point out a single humanist who lives by what you have stated throughout this video. A single one. You have had your internal value destroyed to the point that you can't even see what there is to love in life. I don't feel sorry for myself. Ultimately, I feel sorry for you.